Hi, I'm Lisa Hayden with Central Kentucky TV, community focus on Washington County. Today, our guest is Greg Goatley. Welcome, Greg.
Great to be here, Lisa. This is kind of fun.
Yeah, it is. Well, you've been in the radio business your entire life and TV too, so you should be pretty familiar with this.
It's different when you're on your side asking the questions and on this side answering the questions. You know what you're going to ask, but I don't, so it's different.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to ask either,
Okay,
Greg.
well, that's fun.
So it's just kind of one of those ad lib,
Okay.
just enjoy the conversation.
Okay.
So, but I want to congratulate you on your Springfield, Washington County Chamber of Commerce Award as the Citizen of the Year.
Right. That was a total surprise to me. It was an honor, and I'm grateful for it. And a lot of people have said nice things about me, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're from Springfield, Washington County, grew up here. So I guess, were you born in Springfield?
Well, yeah, we were living here.
Here
I was
in
born
Springfield.
at Mary Immaculate Hospital, Dr. Coyle.
Oh, that's great.
I don't remember, but I was told.
Yeah. Well, that's where most people
Yeah.
were born,
Yep.
in Lebanon at the hospital.
Right.
And your parents were?
Billy and Tootsie.
Bill.
My dad worked for the water company for 35 years. And Mother worked at Cunningham. She worked at Joe Badine's store. They had their own grocery store out on Perryville Road. And she's also a bus driver. So
Isn't that amazing?
the whole time. When I was little, of course, back then you didn't get babysitters. And so she would take me on the bus with her. And before I was school age. And so I rode the bus a long time. And I even have people today that are older that say, I remember when you were about this tall and you rode the bus with your mother. And so those are good memories.
Yeah, they really are. You probably learned a lot on those school buses.
Yeah, probably. Now, kids were different back then. Everybody was well behaved. They sat in their seat, and if the bus driver said don't talk, they didn't talk. And so that was a different era.
Yeah.
So it was good.
It's too bad it's not like that now.
It's changed. A lot of things have changed.
Yeah. Well, and you'd be familiar with that too, since you are a practicing attorney here and have been for, gosh.
Since 1980, so that's, 37 years?
Wow.
Is that right? Something like that.
Yeah.
I started practicing in Bowling Green and then came back here in 82.
Okay.
And practice of law it's an interesting profession. One of the things I learned is that if you don't like people and you don't want to help people, you shouldn't be practicing law. So the reward from practicing law is being able to help people with problems that they can't solve for themselves. And so helping people is really what a lawyer does. And I don't think we are perceived that way typically, but that's what we do. And that's the rewarding part. When you're able to help someone get through a tough time, death or whatever, the family, and working with folks through estates and real estate transactions and things like that. If you help them through it, and they get through it, and then there's a lot of reward in that. And then the other thing, I get appointed by the court to represent children who are taken from their parents due to dependency, neglect, or abuse. We do that every Monday in Washington County.
Been there, done that with you. Yes.
And that
you are the guardian ad litem for the child.
Yeah, I'm the guardian for the child, and the goal is to get, when the child gets taken away, as you well know, the goal is to get the child back with the parents.
Right.
So the cabinet works with the parents to try to get, if there's a drug addiction problem or an alcohol abuse problem, get them out of that to where they can care for their child again. I probably have between 20 and 40 kids in Washington County out of the home right now. Gosh. And it varies, but I don't know and most of it is because of drug and alcohol abuse. It's an addiction. The parents want to get over the addiction. They want to get their child back, but the drugs just grab them and change them. They're not the people they were before they started using drugs or abusing the alcohol. So we have like all counties, we have a serious drug and alcohol addiction problem in Washington County. And it just breaks my heart on Mondays because you come in after you've been to court 2 or 3 times, and the parents are supposed to be working their plan with the cabinet to, get their kids back. And then they have a bad drug test, and that extends it. The children, in many cases, get moved out of Washington County to a foster home because I don't think we have any foster homes here now. And and this is the thing that's troubling. You have, let's say, a 7-year-old child. The parents have whatever it is, neglect, abuse, or abuse, neglect, or dependency. Child gets taken out of the home. They immediately get taken out of their school to another county, to a family they don't know, to a school where their friends are not there, and you have to wait until the parents get their act together.
Right.
And that's hard because if they are addicted, then the addiction controls their lives, and all they want to do is go to get their next fix, and because that's what addiction does for you. So that is a major problem here.
It's serious.
And it's my
serious
interest
all over the country.
Yeah, and my interest is for the kids.
Yeah.
The parents. Of course, they used to say drugs were a victimless crime. We know that's not true. Drugs affect every family. They affect the person's parents, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the brothers, the sisters, the children, the grandchildren. It just devastates families. Mm-hmm. And so that's sort of, I wish we could do something about it. I think we tend to shun that particular issue, but I think if we don't address it, it's going to affect everything we do in this county. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's going to affect jobs. We have employers, factories that are begging for workers. Mm-hmm. They can't get enough people to show up for work sober or to show up for work, period. And most of that is due to drug and alcohol, drug addiction, alcohol abuse. Mm-hmm. I just came back from a seminar in Louisville put on by the family court judges. And a study out of the University of Kentucky says that 20% of Kentuckians have been involved in binge drinking within the last 30 days.
20%.
Right. Binge drinking. That means getting so drunk, drinking enough that you are drunk. 20%. Multiply that times the 10,000 people we have in Washington County, and that's a rough number. Mm-hmm. So we have a problem with drugs, we have a problem with alcohol, and it is affecting everybody. Think about this. There's a factory in a surrounding county that did a drug test one day, and a surprise drug test, and the number was so large of their employees that were using drugs that day at work, they threw the results away, and they're not drug testing anymore. Think about that, Lisa. Mm-hmm. Large number of people are driving to work under the influence. They're working, driving forklifts, using heavy-duty equipment while under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Mm-hmm. And then they're driving home, and they're on the roads. So we have a problem, okay? Yeah. And I just hope that we wake up soon enough. I think the health department could play a major role in that. Health departments used to do everything.
Right.
They used to give shots.
Right.
They used to do checkups. They used to do eye tests, all your school tests. I think it's really every county has a health department. Mm-hmm. And all have nurses. Some even have doctors. And I would love to see the health departments take the lead on drug abuse. Now, in the Lincoln Trail Regional Health Department, the number one goal on their mission statement for Washington County is to become a drug-free community. So I would like to see them step up, offer drug testing, because the first way you deal with the drug addiction and solving the problem is to identify what you have. If you're a marijuana user, what are your levels? You start off, you take that drug test, you see what your level is. You come back a couple of days later, you test again, see if your level went up or went down. So the baselines are very important. So I would hope that the health department would take the lead, because I think it's the #1 health issue in this county. It affects schools. These poor kids go to school having lived with alcoholic or drug addictive parents. And what happens with drug addictive parents and alcohol abuse parents is there's inattention to the children while the children are home. There's a lack of resources to help the children. The money goes for something other than clothes and food and books and things like that. And there's a good chance that if they're addicted to drugs or alcohol, they don't have a job or they don't have a good job. So and then those kids come to school unprepared, sometimes poorly clothed, underfed, and that affects their behavior in the classroom. So I would hope that we would, and the facility that's there is it's already there. The health department's there. I'd just like to see them do that. That's just because of what I've seen in court. I see the magnitude of the problem, and I see at least the beginning of a solution. So that's just one part. I'm sorry to get off on that, but
you'll be happy to hear that in a recent presentation I attended in Frankfurt for the Kentucky League of Cities Day with the Secretary of, I think it was the Justice, or it could have been Health and Human Cabinet for Families and Children. No, it was a man.
David.
He was a former representative, I think, state representative, and I can't think of his name at the moment, but you'd be interested, of course, under the Bevan administration.
Of course.
That there was discussion of that very issue of the drug epidemic in Kentucky, and also with ways to deal with that problem. And one of the avenues that they were exploring, of course, was more treatment instead of a jail time for everybody. It was, and they indicated in this that studies show that it takes. It reminds you of like domestic violence because it takes you like 3 times, at least 3 times, leaving a domestic violence situation before you leave for good.
Right.
Same way with drug addiction.
Relapse rate's about 40%.
It's So it takes about 3 times at least before you actually going through treatment before you finally quit. So anyway, they were looking at more ways for people to get treatment. That was just one avenue that was being explored.
I'm excited.
And also about changes in the law with regard to jail time and people going to jail for various offenses. So anyway, you'd be happy to hear that.
I am.
The
key, I think, is the starting point is the testing.
Yeah.
We don't have a regular drug testing facility in Washington County. So the people that need a drug test have to go to Lebanon, Danville, Campbellsville, Bardstown, Lawrenceburg. My thought is the health department, they have nurses, they have the facilities. Just let the health departments do the drug testing. They send it to the lab, it's tested, boom. At least for court-ordered drug testing.
Right.
So I think that would help us identify the issue and start the road to recovery. You've got to do the testing first to make sure you have a problem, and then see the follow-ups. And so it'd be great. Got anything else you want to talk about?
Well, yes, I do. Okay. I want to go back to speaking, because of your having practiced here all these years. And I know you're active too in the Republican Party. Do you chair the Republican Party now?
No, I'm just a
you're in
lifelong member.
My mother was
my mother was a Republican. My father was a Democrat. So you see who had the influence.
Your mother was the Republican.
That's right.
Well, and then you married a Democratic woman.
Still married to her, and she's still Democrat.
So I'm glad of that.
We have a mixed marriage. I know you do.
And
but I get along
and
with
hopefully not all three of your beautiful daughters registered Republican. Now, you say they did.
Well, they registered right. I don't know how they voted.
Okay.
See, that's the great thing about our country is that nobody knows how you vote.
Exactly.
My vote, your vote, we cancel each other's vote probably about every time, but that's okay. And my wife and I probably can. But everybody gets one vote, and that's okay. But I've learned to get along with Democrats because, Margaret and I have been married 31 years. So her parents were Democrats, so she's a Democrat.
And she worked under Wendell Ford.
That's right. She went to Washington and worked with Senator Ford. So
right.
But one of the good things about being able to get along with everybody, if you remember back when your husband Mike was in state government, Mitch McConnell was a newly elected senator, and we needed to extend water lines out in the county to like Brush Grove Road, Poland Road, Chaplain Road, and all out through there. They had the Willisburg Lake sitting there right around them, but they couldn't get any drinking water. And so all those houses out there had wells and cisterns. Well, we found out that there was some federal money available.
Now, was that when you were city attorney?
Yes.
Okay.
I was city attorney then.
City attorney and under Mayor Saccone.
Right.
Okay.
And I called, Mike was working in state government, and I found out about the money, working with the water company. Called Mike, said, now, Mike, we need to run water out in the north end of the county. Do you think state government will participate in this and help us do this? And he said, absolutely. So Mike and I worked together, and with Senator McConnell's office, and I forget which governor was in at that time, but he was working for them, and we managed to put it all together, get all of the right-of-way easements to run the water lines, and got that project done out there. And that's why everybody's got to work together. I mean,
that's exactly right.
We've got to work together, regardless of how we're registered or who we support. But coming together, we got that done, and we got all those
for
folks.
the common good of our community.
And all those property values went up when they got city water. They didn't have to haul water. It was more healthy, and so everybody got together, and so it worked out really well.
Yeah, that was good. And I can't remember who was governor then either, but anyway, it was a good thing.
Yeah,
we've certainly benefited from that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been good.
And you know that was like with Mike and Dan Kelly when he was Republican state senator, and they worked together on a lot of projects.
We have to work together. Everybody works for their candidates, and everybody does that. But when it comes time for the community, everybody pulls together. The other time that happened was when Springfield Products. SPI, which became Innowac. I was sitting in my office one day, and of course, Dr. Saccone is mayor. I think Lori Smith from City Hall called and said, there's some Japanese fellas down here, and they're looking for a factory site. Can you come down? I said, yeah, I'll be right there. And so we went through that process, and this was in October, I believe. And so we negotiated with them, and they were they knew what they wanted. They decided, they drove through, they knew what site they wanted. And that was a site that had been acquired by the City Industrial Board back then, under Mayor Dwight Wright's administration. And they had been working on that site, and that site was there. Somebody had, the mayor, whoever, had the foresight to find that site. So Mayor Saccone and I met with the Japanese folks, and we negotiated what the city could do. At that time, that site had no utilities, no gas, no electric, no telephone, no road, no anything. And the folks from SPI said, well, we have equipment coming that will arrive February 1st. We need to have a building constructed, all the utilities in, and be under roof by February 1st. October to February.
Wow.
And so the last negotiating session, I was in Bardstown with a fella, and he said, would the city pay to excavate the rock for the building? Well, I mean, it's solid rock out there, and the city didn't have any money. We didn't have a SWITA board. We didn't have anything at that point. And I called the mayor, and the mayor said, I don't believe we can afford that. And I said, okay. So I went back, told them, no, we can't afford it. And I drove back from Bardstown that night, and I thought, I don't know. I don't think this is going to work out. So I got a call about 10 o'clock that night and said, we're coming. And so then, that's when the work began, Lisa. Mayor and I had made these promises that we would get them a road, we'd get them utilities, we'd get them water, sewer, electric. So then Bobby Brady, I think, was mayor at that time, and I called Bobby. I said, Bobby.
You mean county judge?
The county judge, that's right, county judge. And so I said, Judge said, we got this factory coming, the first one we've had in 20 some odd years, but we got to have a road out there, can you help? Well, he and the fiscal court and the state government and everybody got together on that, got the road put in. And then at the end of January, which is right before the completion date, I went out there, the phone company, KU, the water company, everybody, all these backhoes were everywhere trying to finish up. And I mean, I wish I'd had a video of it just to show what they did and how they worked together on the ground, and we got them in on February the 1st. And it was just watching it all come together. And I didn't have a lot to do with it, but just watching it and everybody working together, and they announced, and they have, they're now in INOAC. They have about 350 employees working 3 shifts, and they could use more workers.
Yeah.
You know, so
they've done what, 2 expansions,
yeah,
for sure, and I think might do another. So,
yeah.
But yeah, well, it just goes to show you what can happen when you all work together.
Everybody's got to work together. And
yeah.
We can go vote and campaign for any candidate we want to, but at the end of the day, when you get elected, everybody's got to work together.
Well, and you've been involved in the community a long time, and you went off to school at you went to Washington County High School,
right,
and then you went to Western.
Yep.
Kentucky University and graduated from there, and then you went on to law school at
Chase College.
At Chase. So, and then of course, eventually you came back here, and you've been practicing ever since, and you've been involved in the community in numerous ways. And of course, I know you serve on the Red Cross board.
Absolutely.
With me
Yeah,
and your wife Margaret too.
Well,
that's a very good endeavor to be involved in.
What I like about the Red Cross is that it's mostly a volunteer organization. I know that at times when we were on the board, we had to raise money and do all that. Thank goodness we don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Our sole purpose in being now is to get volunteers to do the various things. And probably the most successful thing Red Cross does here is the blood bank, because blood is so essential.
Right.
And we've always had, the Red Cross has always had good folks volunteer the blood bank that comes however often they come. As you well know, the new area is disaster services to respond to house fires.
Right.
So that when somebody has a house fire, the Red Cross gets called, and they can provide housing and clothes and food and place to stay in that first few hours after the disaster hits. And that is where we need volunteers.
Right.
And so if we need to work on that. And Red Cross is they don't just send anybody. You have to qualify, and you have to have training so that you do the right things on the scene. And so I know you've gotten a new volunteer, and we're still working on that. So I'm very happy that the Red Cross has shifted their emphasis from raising money to getting volunteers.
Yeah.
And I think that's good for all of us.
Right. And right now, I'm sure they're responding to all these tornadoes and catastrophes that have been occurring just in the last little bit. So, and so I'm glad you serve on that Red Cross, and I know you've been involved too with other organizations in the community. And
well, I was chamber president once. That's that's an interesting job to have, because you try to. Thank goodness it's only a 1-year term. And then I was on the school board for 5 years. And that's an interesting
school board, right?
When when you're on school board, you have very little to say about anything except the budget.
Yeah.
School board can do 2 things: it can hire the superintendent, and it can approve the budget. Beyond that, you just listen to people, and it was a very tough 5 years, just because there's just a lot going on. When something happens at school, you've got, I think, 2,300 students in the whole school system. I think that's right. If something happens at school, they hear about it, whether it's good or bad, usually if it's something bad, and they go home and they tell their parents, and all of a sudden there's 4,000, 6,000 people that suddenly know something that happened at school that day. So when Mr. Larry Graves was superintendent, his goal was to help the teachers and the students and the principals so that when those 2,300 kids went home from school that day, they said something good about the school. And so, because we asked him one time, I said, what's your public relations plan as superintendent? He said, my public relations plan is for everything to go well at school, so when those kids go home at night, they say good things about school. Mm-hmm. And I thought he had a tremendous attitude. He said, the superintendent's office should be no nicer than the worst classroom in the district. And I'll remember that for as long as I live, that all of the emphasis needs to be in the classroom, helping the kids, and make sure that all your resources go to where support the teachers, and the teachers take care of the kids. And he would go through every building in the district on a virtually daily basis, not to inspect, but to say, what can we do to help you do your job, asking the teachers. And that approach was just good. And if you'll recall, during that time, there was a proposal to do the nickel tax. There was no opposition to it during that period of time. And so the nickel tax was approved without a vote or anything like that, because people were happy with the way the school was functioning at that time. And so I can't say that I totally enjoyed the 5 years on the school board, but I do feel good that we really got things to where the nickel tax was approved. That allows for bonding, so that you can build new things later on. So it was different, but it was. I'm glad it did.
Well, that was a time too when there were a lot of changes going on in the school, and you and in closing, you will have to mention though that you raised 3 nice young ladies who attended these schools here, Washington County. So
Jane, Lee, and Ellen did great. I mean, Jane went to Senator, Lee went to Westminster out in Missouri. Ellen went to Western first, then transferred to UK. I'm a Western grad, would much rather, but she wanted to go to UK. She graduated from UK. They're all out of school, and I'm very proud of all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And my wife works at the bank, and she's stuck with me for 31 years. So I'm a blessed man. I'm a blessed man.
That's exactly right. And so, and your 3 daughters very successful, having attended Washington County schools, and your wife grew up here as well, a McElroy, and is a vice president at the Springfield State Bank. So yes, indeed, you are a blessed man.
I am a blessed man.
And I think very deserving of the award,
Well,
and happy that you could be with us today with Channel 6 and share that with the viewing audience.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you a lot. Good to see you.